sometimes it is just a matter of trying. So make something that you wish existed.
Well, here we are, an entire decade after Over the Garden Wall first aired, and by this point, the internet already knows basically everything there is to know about this show, the symbolism, its inspirations, how it got made. But one mystery remains unsolved. What was the edition number of its rarest product?
Because I actually don't even know how many were actually made.
Yeah, I do. I found out, and I was wondering if you knew.
How did you find out about the press kit?
So in the late 2010s, I was on the search for the show's vinyl soundtrack by the Blasting Company when I came across this video that showed how the vinyl records were made. But there was something wrong. They were too small. They were purple instead of the splatter orange and yellow that they should be. So what is this? What was it for? 4 years of searching later, I got one. This is one of my favorite things in the world. This is a promo package that was sent out for press to review Cartoon Network's first miniseries, Over the Garden Wall, in 2014. It's an 11-page booklet that comes with a 7-inch vinyl record that you play and read along with the narration. It had songs included, and it was designed to be like one of those old Disney read-along storybooks. I wanted answers to 3 questions. Who made it? How many are out there? And what makes this the first of its kind? When launching a new show, it's standard in the industry to send out what's known as a screener so the media has something to review. This would include a couple episodes, a summary, the cast, characters, images, stills, and ephemera to spark interest. The format has changed, of course, from VHS tapes and floppy disks to DVDs, USB drives, and online download codes. But the purpose of a press kit has always been the same. Packaging for the real product, the show. But having said that, over time, you can see the press kits evolve into a product in themselves, right? But you have to remember that these reviewers that get all these press kits and promo material, they get so much of it from everyone. There's no way that they're going to keep all of it.
It's really about the desire to have somebody take what you make and keep it on their desk for however long. They wanted it to be something somebody would not just like throw away or give to somebody. They want it to have some sort of, value to them.
And that's no small feat. So how would Cartoon Network tackle this task alongside producing their shows at the exact same time?
Like our team was Cartoon Network Creative Group, and we worked with the show creators. We would huddle in Atlanta, discuss and communicate with the teams in Burbank and the creators to kind of work towards a goal of getting the show launched. I mean, our main job was really just managing and creating content to support the shows.
The creative group was a team of around 30 people who tackled just about everything but the cartoons themselves.
And one of the reasons I got hired on is because I did a lot of hand drawing and hand illustration and hand typography. The only other logo I worked on for a show was Gumball. But for this one, because the show is so unique and like trying to find this balance between something that's a bit ornate, it made sense for me to be kind of the person to try to take that on, kind of worked it out through some rounds and eventually landed on kind of the logo that you see now.
On the on-air side, I started as someone who made all the premiums for the network. Those were like the marketing giveaways. And at the time, they were making tons of stuff like T-shirts. We made custom like Christmas lights with character heads on them. We made
a lot of things that went to our own staff every year.
I mean, just anything you could think of that you could put cartoon characters on. And it just kept evolving over the years.
Now, the reason why I asked Branden and Calvin about the creative group was because They worked on the Read and Listen. Plenty of ideas were put forward to promote the show, but Andy Merrill's pitch stood out.
My friend Larry Morris, who was a creative director at the time, and Andy and I were just throwing around ideas, and I think Andy may have said, maybe it'd be cool if we did one of those like Disney style books.
When Andy was a kid, he had a storybook about Sydney the elephant read by Soupy Sales. And Pat McHale loved it. He loved the concept, the design, it fit the spirit of the show, and so they set to work. Pat got started by rewriting the text and the narrative of the first few episodes to fit the new format. Pat championed and pushed for Jim Campbell and Branden Collins to illustrate and design the storybook.
I think Pat enlisted him and worked on the sort of page count with Jim and kind of fleshed it out.
Jim was responsible for the watercolor illustrations that appear throughout the storybook. He was gracious enough to send me scans of the original sketches he did in pencil, which I don't think have been shown before. Calvin then went on to show me the inked versions. Fun fact, the original watercolor paintings ended up in a 2017 art show, an internal art show that Cartoon Network did at their Burbank studio. So those are out in the world somewhere. There were also some prototypes, early versions of the children on the back, and at one point, they were Wirt and Greg. Branden was tasked with designing the booklet itself.
I was mostly just working on, for the press kit, like the layout and like literally the graphic design. So I just like laid the pages out.
Which included the font choices and the general packaging and design.
I had like kind of free reign, but obviously I would send to people for sign off on that.
He also designed these custom title cards that were on the DVD screener. Jack Jones, who voiced the narrator and the frog Jason Funderburker on the show, was called back into the studio in Burbank, California to record this custom narration.
We also had to make sure Jack was recorded before we started this. Robert Ferguson and Greg Gause did the audio. We had to get our music cues, our sound effects.
This included songs from the show by the Blasting Company and featuring vocalists Frank Fairfield, Jack Jones, and Samuel Ramey. Dialogue that was already recorded for the show was trimmed, repurposed, and moved around.
And then Jack recorded for this before we could even press the record, because they have to make a acetate version that is the master that all the other records get pressed from.
Once the audio was mixed and mastered, it was sent over to United Record Pressing in Nashville, Tennessee, to be pressed on 7-inch burgundy purple vinyl records. Calvin scheduled a visit to travel from Atlanta with a film crew to Nashville.
We just went up there for a couple days
so they could record the process of how it was made and include it in a behind-the-scenes feature, the very same that I saw that started me on this journey.
That was just a fun thing because we were music lovers. Like half the people that went on that shoot were in bands or music lovers. United Pressing is actually the biggest pressing plant for vinyl in the United States. You kind of have to get everything ready, and then they tell you when you can come over, because you're in the mix of tons of other, like on the machine right next to us, Jack White had a 45 that was being done.
Then everything was shipped back and assembled, all wrapped up in a clean, understated cardboard mailer with the screen-printed logo on the front. So how many were made? No one knows. And not only do I mean the general public doesn't know, even the folks who made this don't know. How do I know that? I asked them. I reached out to United Record Pressing first, because I thought if I could find the edition number, we could have our total number of the press kits that were made. But That was 10 years ago. They needed an exact date of the pressing to search their database. I don't have that. I wasn't there. But do you know who was there? Calvin Florian. So last year I emailed him, and of course he doesn't know. That was 10 years ago. He'd have to search through his archives. He doesn't know. Pat McHale doesn't know. Jim Campbell doesn't know. The blasting company doesn't know. So I went back to the original video of how the records were pressed to see if there's anything that might give a clue to how many were printed. Wait, what was that? So it turns out for less than a second, there's some text that shows the order sheet. And there it is. 1,000.
So you can see 1,000 copies, custom burgundy.
I couldn't believe it. So, why make this video now, beyond the 10th anniversary? The Read and Listen has been online for years. Water Tower Music uploaded it themselves this time last year. So what's the big deal? Because for the first time ever, it's getting released as a product to the public. I don't know how evergreen this video is going to be down the line, so it might be sold out at the time you're watching this, but they're hoping to release it annually as long as they're able to. And who's they in this case? Well, it'll be made by Mutant. Those same folks over at Mondo that brought you your favorite releases, like the soundtrack and the 4-Star cassette, started their new company to realign with their original vision of vinyl and posters, plus also Elijah Wood's part of it, which is awesome. Shafeek, one of the co-founders of Mutant and also just champion of all things Over the Garden Wall in his time at Mondo, did a brief rundown on his Instagram about the press kits, but I wanted to know more. So I asked him.
For as long as I can remember, we were talking like the 10th anniversary is coming up right around the corner. We should do this big celebration of it. One of the things that I was already developing that I had the idea to do, because it literally has been sitting on my desk for a long time, was to revisit this Read and Listen thing that was gifted to me after we did the cassette by Katie Krentz, the producer of Over the Garden Wall. Last year, when we were starting this new thing, we were like, well, what if we make that for real? But the real hard part was figuring out, like, okay, in that interim, Water Tower know what they have with this stuff, and they went ahead and they actually digitized it and they put it on YouTube. These companies are like, they handle so many things that like they can really only focus on digital. What we do is we physicalize digital things. And if we're just coming in and saying like, hey, we want to take this thing that already exists and make a physical version of it, and you guys make money too, a lot of times the relationship is symbiotic in that way, where it's like, okay, cool. I don't know. I've found in my career that like there are just some things that don't get made if I don't make them. And so this is just one of those things, which is why it's fascinating you want to hear about the process, because the process is not really that exciting or sexy. It is just, sometimes it's not even a gatekeeping thing. Sometimes it's not even a like, you would not believe how much drama there was. A lot of times it's like one person who just has an idea goes to someone who is sort of overwhelmed at a studio but likes making cool stuff, and they're just sort of like, how much work will this be for me? And I go, less work than you think. And they go, that's the amount of work that I can handle, so yes, let's do it. They're being pressed in GZ, which is in the Czech Republic, which is where we do most of our pressing. Not all of our pressing, but most of our pressing. Really good quality, but they also have an in-house print shop, whereas in North America, most pressing plants don't. There's only a handful of printers in North America who can do complex vinyl packaging. And so, I mean, we sent the original to our production partner, this company called A to Z, and they developed a brand new blank white CAD for, let me see if I can find it. It's called a CAD, based the cardstock and the weight and paper off of the original.
Wow.
With the, a blank black 7-inch inside of it just to see how it is. This is it. And then I got sent a bunch of prototypes of the like mailer. The only major difference between this one and the original one is the specific purple of the vinyl color is obviously something most times pretty bespoke to whatever plant is making it. So this will be a little bit more of an actual proper translucent purple as opposed to like a marbled smoky purple thing. But then separately, the mailer thing, the original one, this mailer is actually going to be a little bit thinner just because like sourcing this exact mailer, plus it actually like, you know, it's not actually holding it in any secure way.
Yeah.
So we ended up going with a slightly thinner spine and around all of it, but it is, you know, otherwise fairly identical. Sometimes it is just a matter of trying. And that was the most eye-opening thing. It's not like an ego thing, but it is just like, that's what I learned, that if you don't make it yourself, then it won't get made. Chances are, especially in this really small world that we live in, increasingly smaller and smaller world, that if you make something that you want, there's at least a few thousand other people in the world who are like you, who also have been begging for that thing to exist.
You can click up here or in the description down below for links. But wait a minute. There's still one mystery left to solve. It occurred to me that it was never mentioned who did the cover artwork. Jim Campbell is the only credited illustrator, and frankly, this front cover doesn't look like the watercolors inside. And when you look on Water Tower's official video that they posted, they have an uncropped version. So why would you make a wider painting just to crop it down to a size you know the product's going to be? As a matter of fact, it looks more like a background painting. I figure it could be an unused or concept background painting for the show, so I flipped through the art book to see if I can find it there. And there it is. It's from episode 7, of course, the Field of Forget-Me-Not Flowers. Background layouts by Chris, Nick Cross, of course, and then a name I haven't seen before, Germán Orozco. Who is that? So I go to his website, and I find the background painting. So he's our mystery artist. Chris gets back to me. He did the background layout design. Here it is. Beautiful. And then Nick gets back to me, and he says that he did the background painting. No, that's not possible. Two people... No. That doesn't make sense. So what gives? Well, it turns out there was no singular mystery artist. It was all three of them. Chris did the background layout. Germán did his painting based on Chris's layout. And then Nick went in and touched it up, added color to what we see as the final version in the show and on the press kit. It's collaboration all the way down. From the show to the press kit to its re-release, the common thread I've found among these folks through talking to them is that they have nothing but good things to say about working on Over the Garden Wall.
But this one, yeah, I think it was just the right combination of the right show at the right time
sometimes you end up in the right place and right time, and Over the Garden Wall was just a thing that we just happened to be there, you know, right place, right time, and we're friends with the right people. And
Over the Garden Wall was a really special miniseries, and the way the press kit was approached, I think, was like really unique.
Not only are they talented and very hardworking, they're really kind. They're good people. They didn't owe me their time. They volunteered to share their experience because they just love this show. And it shows.
person who really was the like big advocate for this whole thing, and for us, was a woman named Katie Krentz with a Z. She is and was and continues to be one of the coolest people I've ever known in this industry, and she took a real chance on us as people who believed in this thing, and this wouldn't exist without her. You know, I remember very vividly being at like in San Diego at Comic-Con there's like a really famous pancake restaurant that's there in the gas lamp, with Pat and Katie and myself having just these gigantic pancakes at this Dutch breakfast spot in San Diego. And just like, that's like one of my fondest memories of my time at Mondo, was just being there with like two people who like clearly loved each other and knew each other very well and worked really hard to make this thing happen, and sitting at the table with them as this like just true, like a true fan who got welcomed into the room and was able to just sort of be there, and all the doors open because of Katie. So that's who I want to shout out.
I think, my mom says, like, do you just do your best? And I think, like, at a certain point, that's, like, kind of where we have to just, like, land, is, like, we just have to, like, do our best.